Back when I was still in school, smartphones were a blooming and near foreign piece of tech to a lot of people. Very few people in my class had phones in general, much less smartphones. Among my classmates, you either had no phone, which was very, very common, a dummy phone, the Motorola Razr, which is still peak design by the way, or the peak of the time, the pinnacle of all modern technology in the mobile space, the iPhone. Specifically for my age and experience, the iPhone 3GS. Released in June of 2009, that following school year in September, I saw the more well-off kids in my class showing off their new toys at lunchtime and after school and before school, in between the bells, and it just got me thinking, that's a phone? Like, seeing it in person with your classmates, like I had a friend who actually had one, it was unreal. Back then, the only Apple product I owned was a 3rd gen iPod Nano. And I thought it was the bee's knees with the anodized aluminum, until Apple announced the original iPhone and the iPod Touch. But for a poor old teenager like me, either was far from it. I didn't get my first iPod Touch until I graduated high school and started working, but never owned an iPhone until I bought the iPhone 11 I'm currently using to track my model. But I'm not using it for mobile phone purposes. It's just for a fancy camera and tracking. So it doesn't really count. I've always been an Android guy. Ever since working my job in mobile sales and getting the original LG Optimus G through a work discount. Even though I sold iPhone by the trove, from the iPhone 4, the 4S, the 5, and even the 5C. I just never decided to buy one. Now let's fast forward to 2024, when I first bought this old thing for nostalgic purposes. The iPhone 3GS 32GB. To have it in my hand and maybe go back for a moment in time, to feel what it was like to be that popular kid in high school, showing off your shiny new iPhone to all the kids to make yourself feel and look cool. Well, that feeling was fleeting and overrated, just like being popular in high school. But I digress. It's still cool to own a once revolutionary piece of tech that was essentially the forerunner and inspiration of all modern smartphones as we know it today. Now, let's talk about this iPhone 3GS. This particular specimen, as I said, was the 32GB model, the top of the crop back then, a 3.5-inch display rocking a totally high-definition 480 by 320 pixel panel. Nice. A 3-megapixel rear camera. Yes, I like my pictures grainier than the beaches with sand. 256 megabytes of RAM. Yes, megabytes. And featuring the Apple Cortex A8 CPU, boasting an incredibly blazing speed of 600 megahertz. This was pre-gigahertz speed in phones. We're talking like top tier calculator, TI 89, whatever the top tier is nowadays, type of shit. This one's running its latest version of iOS at 6.1.6. It is not jailbroken. I don't know if I'm going to do it yet. It's not really going to add much to its value or functionality, especially to me. So it may just remain stock for all of eternity. The back is plastic, but it still feels durable and somewhat premium, in my opinion. I really do dig the white color. Featuring Corning Gorilla Glass and a nice metal trim around the glass, I honestly like the look. It looks kind of chic. Especially back then, it looked way out there in terms of like a premium feel and how it looked. Dude, if you had one of these, people were gonna look at it. Although I think the original 3G is a little bit prettier, and the original iPod Touch, besides having a bad panel, was peak Apple design. Like, I loved this thing. I loved the black on it. I just loved it. But of course, when you go back to old Apple designs like this, we cannot forget the solid, but god awful 30-pin connector. Slow charging, slow sync to iTunes. You gotta love it. They were solid. They didn't break that often, but when they did break, it was pain. Because unlike the lightning connector from more modern phones, where if the lightning connector broke, 9 times out of 10, you can just fish it out of the phone and your phone is fine. You know, you just replace the cable. Whoop-de-doo. The 30-pin breaks, ooh, you're probably gonna have to take your phone in to get professionally repaired or just flat out get a new phone. When it's just the cable that breaks, you are absolutely lucky. But kind of looking at this device now, you know, I'm sure you guys are wondering, how does it hold up in modern times? Like, can you actually use it as a smartphone to this day? Like, I'm sure calls and texts would probably work fine. I don't have a SIM card to try it out, and I'm not using the one out of my phone because it's not going to work. But for anything modern like web browsing and YouTube, not really. Even if you were to jailbreak it and do some side loading via Cydia, I really don't think it's worth all that effort just to make something this old work when you can spend way less money on something way newer, whether it's a tablet or a phone, and get way more functionality out of it for years to come. And don't even get me started on the camera. Like I said, it's about as grainy as a sandy beach. Impressive back then, sure, because of the fact that you had a freaking camera built into your phone that was actually competent back then. But even budget offering smartphones nowadays have a severely better camera. Even for the front camera. Like, all these front cameras are infinitely better than this one's rear camera. The rear camera is the one that carries the phone. So, don't even think about doing photography on this thing. So in essence, it's a really nice paperweight that turns on and still functions somewhat. But as a modern device, unless you like running retro apps, retro games like maybe Flappy Bird or just playing around with it after it's jailbroken, you know, just for funsies, then I guess it's fine. But for anything else, no. It don't work worth a damn. No. But looking back on it, the iPhone 3GS was a really cool device back in my day. And even compared to like the Motorola Razr, which is still like one of the coolest phones ever released, it's so cool in fact that Motorola even tried to resurrect it, and it didn't last very long. But you know, hey, hats off to them for trying to latch back onto the past glory and capitalize on the fact that folding phones are kind of making a comeback now, many more ways than one. But I digress. Going back on that fleeting feeling of having the same phone that some of the popular kids in high school had, and just thinking to myself, like, yeah, it's cool to have like the latest and greatest tech, but what's the point of like buying things to show off to other people, especially people that you aren't friends with, that you don't really care about? You know, it's not the type of thing to raise yourself up. You know, if you want to buy something for you and you like it, that's a completely different story. But it just reminded me that, you know, buying things to impress people that you don't care about and don't care about, you know, you as a person, even if you have nice things, that's just not the way to live. And learning that made, you know, like my lack of friends and lack of social interaction in high school a little bit more not painful, because a lot of it was artificial. You know, I have good friends from high school and even back further than that, few and far between, but we're still good friends to this day. And I value that infinitely more than any potential interaction I would have gotten by ignoring them and trying to cater to a different crowd of people that not anywhere near my life anymore. Kind of an interesting thing to look at a piece of history that was quite relevant in my upcoming and upbringing. Kind of a weird nostalgia, but, you know, hey, if you guys feel the same way, you know, maybe it's a bit of a reflection for you guys too. But anyways, I hope you guys liked the video. It was really cool to look at some of this retro tech. Let me know if you want me to check out any other retro tech. I do have older consoles, gaming consoles, that I can talk about. I have other older phones I can talk about, just like the Motorola Razr that I own. I actually have 3 of them because I'm just that cool. But yeah, I would love to do another like retrospect video of older tech of any regard, really. I just love talking about it. I love sharing my experiences with them, you know, sharing them with you guys. I know it's a little different from my normal content. I am not just a React Andy creator, I promise. So, yeah, if you guys like this, make sure you smash that like and subscribe button, leave a comment on something you want me to talk about, or share your own experiences with the iPhone 3GS in the comments as well. And don't forget to check out my socials in the description as well. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. And, yeah, for now, I'll see you guys in the next video.